The movie begins when a half-conscious man jumps from a rooftop of a building before a police officer could save him. Then the scene shifts to Jane, who is a medical student and lives with her delinquent little sister June while taking care of their grandmother. Her intense studying schedule, household duties, and struggle to pay debt prompts her to become an insomniac. At the university, Jane's professor, Nietzsche, gives her a business card from Weimar Personal, a German pharmaceutical company that is researching insomnia and pays good money to people who are test subjects. Jane is drawn in by the money, so she quickly accepts the suggestion and applies to be a test subject. Soon after, she goes to the company where the head scientist, Hans Miller, explains that their experiment, dubbed Deep, will be conducted in 3 levels and aims to harvest a brain chemical called cratonin, which induces wakefulness in humans. This is achieved through implanting a microchip in the subject's nape. After being promised a fitting reward and signing an NDA, Jane is implanted and given a watch to monitor her creatinine level. Hans warns that the chip will induce cardiac arrest if she ever falls asleep for more than 60 seconds before reaching 100% creatinine levels. Later, Jane's at home and starts her night routine. It seems like time goes slower because it's 2 a.m. and she is already bored and sleepy. Her creatinine level is only at 39%. Suddenly, she hears the sound of a car. It's her sister June, who's arriving home late and is getting a lift from a mysterious guy. Jane confronts her sister, and while they are fighting, Jane breaks her sister's phone by accident, so June gets even angrier and leaves. Day 2 of level 1 starts, and Jane is at the university when she encounters fellow students and deep subjects, partygoer Win, gamer nerd Peach, and popular influencer Sin. Peach is in love with the influencer. Even though they are very different people, the 4 of them quickly bond and add each other on social media. Also, Win develops feelings for Jane. After reaching the end of Deep's first level, they each get their microchips removed and receive their rewards. Peach upgrades his game room, Win buys an expensive watch and an aquarium, Sin goes to a cosmetician, and Jane pays off a part of the debt. As they grow closer, Sin confides that she has a stalker. The group named themselves Non-Non, meaning no sleep in French and Thai. They decide to proceed to the 2nd level of Deep, offering an even bigger reward provided they stay awake longer. Later that night, Jane is studying at home when her sister arrives late again. This time, Jane gives her a new phone she bought with the money from Deep as a way to apologize. Meanwhile, Win enters his messy house that's filled with books and barely speaks a word to his father. Sin also doesn't have a good relationship with her family, who are forcing her to be a medical student, even though she prefers to study communication. In the morning, the students go to the facility and continue level 2. Dr. Hans explains that based on their previous performances, he expects their creatinine level to reach 100% in 5 days. The next thing we know, the 4 students are barely conscious. Peach's watch starts beeping as he falls asleep for a few seconds, while Win is half-consciously walking through a hallway and can't focus his vision. June gets suspicious about Jane's behavior and about the way she found money to buy her a new phone, so she demands answers. Jane lies and tells she got a part-time job as a tutor, but June doesn't believe her. They get into a fight and Jane leaves, but her sister finds a business card from Deep on the desk. The next morning, Jane is barely awake and is doing an autopsy on a body during class. While cutting, she hallucinates that the person has her grandmother's face and screams in front of everyone. Meanwhile, Sin is hardly walking through the university's halls. She also realizes that more students partake in the experiment. The 4 sleep-deprived students meet in the canteen, and their watches are stuck at a low percentage. Even though she's tired, Jane notices how Win's creatinine levels are higher than the rest. She concludes his percentage is higher because he exercises, and that body movement probably affects creatinine levels. To cope with this, they hold a party at Peach's house where they swim in the pool and drink sugary sodas. They drink cocktails and get drunk afterward. Sin, Win, and Peach start dancing, but Jane is sitting still because she is dizzy. All of them have an amazing time, and Jane even kisses Win, giving him a bit of false hope. At one point, Sin is shocked to discover that Peach is her stalker. There are dozens of her Instagram videos showing simultaneously on Peach's computer, as well as pictures of her hanging on the ceiling above his bed. Sin falls unconscious but is resuscitated shortly after at the last second. After Tin's near-death experience, the group finishes the 2nd level and quits the experiment. Finally, they get their hours of sleep and continue their normal lives. A few days later, Peach approaches Sin and tries to apologize, explaining how he only stalked her because he liked her. Sin threatens to call security and ends their friendship. Afterward, Jane also ends her relationship with Win, as her hands are already full, so she's not looking for something like that at the moment. After getting rejected by Jane, Win goes to a bar to drink his sorrows away, but he can't get Jane out of his head. He also discovers that his dad threw away his mother's old stuff. Win gets angry and confronts his father. His dad didn't want them to be stuck forever with her memory. Meanwhile, at the university, Jane sees an ambulance vehicle carrying the body of a newly deceased student. She notices a deep watch on the student's wrist and gets scared. When she gets home, she sees another horrible picture. Her grandmother has fallen on the floor and suffered a stroke. She takes her grandma to a hospital, where June arrives late. Jane tells her they have to move their grandma to another hospital because they can't afford this one. June then gives her a paper bag filled with money and with Veymar's logo on it. Jane asks her sister to turn around and sees a chip in her neck. They get into a fight and June leaves while Jane goes with the nurse to check on their grandma. Afterward, Jane runs back home and sees her sister isn't there. She goes to Weimar and finds Dr. Hans inserting another chip into June. Jane threatens to call the police, but Hans reminds her that she signed an NDA. If she wants to remove the chip from her sister, she must persuade her other friends to continue with level 3. The sisters leave the hospital and meet up with Sin, Win, and Peach, hoping to get help from their friends. Peach and Sin don't like the idea and aren't willing to risk their lives again. Sin says it's a bad bet because they will be risking 4 lives in order to save 1. Win reminds her that Jane was the one who saved her life and that she owes her for that. Even though Jane starts begging, Sin leaves and Peach follows her soon after. Win is the only one who wants to help and promises he won't leave the sisters behind. Later, the sisters are watching their grandmother in the hospital and open up to each other. June apologizes and says she wasn't thinking straight. Jane comforts her and both sisters hold hands, wondering how they will survive level 3. At the same time, Sin is at home doing a live feed when she starts remembering the good times she had with the other students. Peach is also going through old memories and starts crying, regretting how he acted with his crush. The next morning, Jane, June, and Win arrive at Weimar, but see how Peach is already waiting for them. He changed his mind and decided to help the sisters after all. Soon, Sin enters the facility too, saying how she doesn't want to be indebted to anyone. The 4 of them start level 3 together, but Jane has thought of a plan. After they get chipped, they go to Professor Nietzsche, who will help them during the experiment. She places them in her father's old abandoned ward, and gives them Exerol to keep them awake. She tells them to use the intercom if they want more help, and soon leaves them on their own. A few days pass and everybody is doing fine, but on the 6th day, things quickly go astray. It all starts with Peach, who starts having auditory hallucinations and hears gunshots from the other ward. Win is also hallucinating, seeing his dead mother coming toward him in the hallway, while Jane imagines her sister bleeding and June starts comforting her sister, persuading her that she's alive, and one by one, the students start gaining awareness. In the bathroom, Sin is looking at herself in the mirror when numerous pimples start appearing on her face. She breaks the mirror and then starts blaming Jane for her skin damage. Sin becomes rude and starts bashing on everybody, saying Win is desperate to get Jane's attention and that Peach is a psychopath. Win gets angry at Sin while Peach tries to calm things down. Win then gets angry at him and provokes Peach, so they start fighting each other with nobody to calm them down. Jane gets scared, so she uses the intercom and asks the professor for help. Nobody is answering, so she exits the room and starts looking for Nisha. In one of the rooms, she discovers how Nisha has been watching them from security cameras and tracking their progress. Jane also finds audition papers for an actor who looks exactly like Dr. Hans. Turns out, Nisha hired an actor to pretend to be a doctor while she was running the whole operation all along. The professor finds Jane snooping, so the student quickly runs away to her friends. As she slips on the stairs and falls, Nisha is observing her from the top of the stairs, slowly approaching her victim. Jane manages to escape to the room where everybody's fighting and starts calling the police, but there is no signal. Nisha then locks them in the ward and tells them she'll remove the chips once they reach 100%. Soon after, Sin breaks all the cameras and tells the doctor she's never getting her microchips because she's coming to kill her. Suddenly, Win falls asleep and his alarm starts beeping. Even though the others try to save him, he doesn't wake up and instead dreams about his deceased mother while approaching him, takes a gun, and shoots herself. Win's watch gets at 0 seconds, meaning he slept over a minute. Nisha gets a notification that one of the students is dead, so she enters the ward to take his body and remove the chip. As she is doing this, Win gets up and hits her on the head. The students tricked her. They turned off the cameras on purpose, so Win can take CCL, which causes temporary cardiac arrest. When Nisha gets up from the floor, Jane asks her the reason behind her brutal experiment. Then the professor opens up a curtain and shows her old lover, Jed, who is in a coma. It's the same person from the beginning of the movie who jumped from the rooftop. He was a medical student who got bad hallucinations because he was experimenting with sleep deprivation. Nisha was his girlfriend and has been trying to revive him with cretonin ever since. She explains to the students that she cares about them and that she never meant to harm them. Nisha has also been harvesting creatinine from her own body, so she shows her neck wounds. To the students, nobody believes that she means well, so Nisha attacks Jane and injects her with Valium, leaving her to die unconscious. June and Win try to save her while Peach and Sin fight the professor, who's trying to stick the needle in them as well. Win gives Jane CPR, but she isn't waking up and remains unconscious even after a minute passes. Meanwhile, after a brief struggle, Sin bashes the professor's head with a keyboard and saves her stalker Peach from being injected. Jane is still sleeping and June is crying over her body, hitting her sister's heart with a fist. Suddenly, Jane wakes up and everybody is relieved. In the aftermath, Professor Nisha is arrested and all her implanted chips are extracted from the subjects. Even though they never get the money for level 3, they continue with their normal lives, which are now even better. Win settles things with his father. Sin is still an Instagram influencer, but studies communication instead of medicine. Win and Jane are dating, Peach quits gaming, and the movie ends with the four of them reunited as friends. And with that, the movie ends. We hope you enjoyed our recap. Like the video and subscribe to our channel for more amazing recaps. See you in the next one.